All right, hello everyone. Thanks for joining back in with us for this live Q&A session. My name is Chris from DecoNetwork, and I'll be hosting the session for today. Uh, so we're focusing on our users' questions. We're taking in questions. Feel free to jump into the live chat, ask away, and we'll monitor the chat throughout the session to address whatever questions you guys have for us. All right, so I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. We'll give some time for everyone to kind of hop onto the session, and then we'll get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's session here. To kind of start us off, I'm going to cover some brand new functionality. I'm also going to, I guess, touch on the topic of updates. Right, DecoNetwork is a cloud-based software solution, and what that means for our users is the system's constantly changing, improving, and without any requirements on your end to buy a software upgrade or manually upgrade your system. We simply handle those upgrades for you behind the scenes. And just this week, we've launched our latest minor update, uh, 8.06, which includes bug fixes as well as some new improvements. So I'll go ahead and showcase one of those. But before we jump in to take a look at some of those improvements, I did want to just highlight our help system. Uh, Great resource to jump in and learn about specific pages within the backend as far as what, let's say, what a setting does or where do you find a certain setting. The help system is great for that using this universal search at the top. If you scroll down to the bottom of our help system, our help center, you'll see a link here to our different support resources, for example, our service status page. But today we're focusing on release notes. So if you click into there, you're going to see a history of all our version release notes, including the ones for 8.006, which we've just released a couple of days ago. All right, so here you're going to see some highlights in terms of what's included in this new version. In total, there were 107 different tasks completed by our programming team. So we don't list each and every single one. However, we do list some of the highlights, right? The kind of the key features included in that release. All right, and today I'm going to focus on showcasing a couple of the web editor improvements, specifically this enhancement here. We've added the ability to copy a custom page in DecoNetwork, which has been a common request. So that's going to be a great feature to go in and cover. And then we've also enhanced the drop-down menu for the designs page so that you can choose whether or not you want to show store designs, stock designs, or both. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. Again, just closing off on this section here, we do recommend keeping an eye on the Help Center. Another place to stay updated is our blog. If you head over to deconetwork.com/blog, we also post about our release updates here as well as other news going on inside of the DecoNetwork system. So a great place to stay updated. If you scroll down here in the blog, there's a section for release updates. So you can see we have a blog post there regarding our 8.006 release with a link to the release notes as well. All right, so two great ways to kind of stay up to date with what's happening with the DecoNetwork system. All right, jumping back to my page here. Let's jump into the page editor. I'll click edit this page here while I'm viewing the site to jump straight into the page editor. All right, so let's start off with the drop-down option. So if we take a look at store designs for this particular site, you can see I have just one category in here. However, if I view my site on the front end, I have that category listed as well as three other categories. So where are those three other categories coming from? Those are actually my stock design categories. So if I jump over to the stock designs admin area, you can see I have those different categories listed there, right? So by default, and this is the way it's been historically in DecoNetwork, when you're using a simple dropdown, that means the system's automatically generating it. We're going to display all of the categories, which includes your store designs as well as your stock designs. So we've gone ahead and made an improvement there with this latest release. If we take a look at our page editor and look under the design section and then click into page options, you'll see there's a new option down here right below your drop-down menu setting. There's a new option for drop-down menu designs. And this now allows you to control whether you want to continue showing both store and stock designs, or perhaps you want to show just the store designs, right? I'm going to go ahead and make this switch for my own site. So I'll select that option, I'll hit save, and then I'll make sure to publish that change so we can check it out. All right, so that's applying there. Let's meantime go back to our site. Let's hit refresh so we can start loading that up. And once it refreshes here, we'll see, we still have the same layout, but now once I hover over the drop-down page, I should only see my one store design category rather than the longer list that I was seeing before. All right, so sure enough, there's the change. I'm now only seeing the single category, which corresponds with my store design category. So, if you were making a change like that, you would also want to go into the design page itself and change your listing widget to correspond visually as well, right? So your listing widget has a similar option as far as show store designs, show stock, or show both. So I might do the same for that widget as well and set it to show store designs only. So now those two are kind of corresponding with each other. All right, so that takes care of the new drop-down option. Gives you some flexibility as far as how you want to control your drop-downs. Uh, Aside from that, you do also have the option to go completely custom. So this is all within the scope of using a simple dropdown. If you switch over to one of these custom options, that's going to give you a lot more flexibility to edit your dropdowns rather than the system generating them for you. You'll go in and create the content for your dropdowns yourself, similar to customizing one of the pages. All right, we do have a help article on how to customize those dropdowns in more detail. So definitely check back with the Help Center on that. All right, so the other tip I'm going to give as far as new features in the 8.06 release is the ability to, again, copy a page. So I've got this example page set up here, my cool page, which right now has an HTML widget with a countdown timer. We covered how to set that up on a previous session, one of the earlier sessions here on YouTube, so you can definitely jump back and check out that video if you're interested. But so what we're showing here is, kind of a custom page, something that took a few minutes to set up and copy and paste some code snippets, make some changes, set some colors, set some padding. So the scenario that we're covering here is, let's say, this is a type of page that I'm going to be repeating. Maybe I'm setting up one of these pages for each of the schools that I work with. So I'm setting up their countdown timer for ordering. I'm listing their products right below that. And I want an easy way to kind of replicate that, right? I have 20 different schools that I work with. I don't want to have to drag in that HTML widget, make the changes each time. I want to be able to quickly set these up. So that's exactly the scenario where copying the page now comes in super handy. So if you go into your pages listing here in the page editor, you'll notice that uh, any non-system page has the ability to select copy. So I can go ahead and press copy next to my cool page. Let's call it my cool page 2 and hit OK. So that's now going to take that exact configuration and create a copy right below it. So it's a much more advanced starting point. So now all I would need to do, maybe, go back into my HTML widget. Maybe this school has a little bit longer time to order. So maybe they're ordering till October. We'll make that change on the date. And then maybe they're using red as their school colors. So we could go ahead and make that change on the widget, make the change on our background as well. And then maybe I have a category set up to list their products. So I'll jump into the listing widget and select one of these other categories. Right, and just like that, with a few clicks, I've now set up a similar page to what I had previously without having to, drop in widgets and copy and paste content from somewhere else. All right, so that's going to be a huge time saver for you guys using the DecoNetwork 8 page editor. All right, going back on what I mentioned earlier, there are certain pages that you don't have the ability to copy, and those are going to be system pages, right? Pages where they're very specific in terms of the functionality that they have. They're really pages that whose functionality cannot be duplicated, right? So you've got things like the default listing pages as far as blank products, decorated products, and designs. We did also add this icon identifier next to those system pages to kind of give you some feedback as far as what they're doing. Right, so products is the system page that displays decorated products in a way that they can paginate. So you've got the page numbering down at the bottom. No other page has that functionality. So these are kind of unique pages, and so you'll notice that we don't have the option to copy those. Same goes for a page like the designer. Again, it's kind of a one-off. Um, and then your quote pages will also be kind of that same one-off where that functionality uh, can't be duplicated somewhere else. All right, so yeah, great new functionality here in the page editor. All right, feel free to type in any questions that you guys have into the live chat. I'll be monitoring that to start answering your questions. In the meantime, we've shown off some of these new enhancements in the DecoNetwork page editor that came with this last 8.006 release. Um, I guess to finish off here, I will mention right now DecoNetwork is kind of on a monthly schedule, so we're seeing about every 4 weeks a new update come down the line. And again, you can stay up to date by following either our blog or the Help Center. All right, so I'm going to jump into a question that we had raised from a fairly new signup. They were working with their decoration methods, and their question is, I'm looking to create a color palette for my decoration process. I have covered previously on one of the last sessions how to add a palette, but we didn't cover how to import a palette. So in addition to creating a palette through the admin interface, you can also import a color palette using a CSV file, comma separated value, which is essentially a spreadsheet. And so, we had this question asked, I did just want to go through that process in case anyone else has a similar question and can benefit from walking through it. So for this, I'm going to jump into the declaration processes list here in my admin area. And I'm going to click on a specific process, let's say transfer. And you'll notice once I click on the process, it's going to expand out to the different options. For this, we're going to click into the color palettes page for the transfer process. And that's going to give us a list of any color palettes that we already have configured. Again, previously I did show off how to manually add it here through the UI. We added, these basic colors for vinyl. So last example we were doing is, let's say we're using the transfer process for vinyl. All right, so let me go ahead and actually delete that existing table. Let's assume that maybe we don't have any color palettes currently configured and we want to import those. Another common scenario is, let's say uh, you're using screen printing and you want to import a color palette representing Pantone colors, right? That's something that maybe you don't want to do one at a time, right? There are thousands of colors in those Pantone color books, so the import function would come in handy there. Um, it's worth mentioning, the Pantone colors are protected under a license, so I'm not sure. You would have to check with I guess your provider on that information as far as whether or not you have access to import that. But I know I have the Pantone color management software, and it does have an export option. Um, so it would potentially be possible to export that information, get it into a format where you could convert it into a CSV file and import that into DecoNetwork. All right, but I do want to cover just the basic import process and the format. So I've blanked out my transfer process here. On the top right corner of the screen, you'll see you have this option for import palette. And if you click on that, it's going to give you two options. So we allow importing of CSV files for your print processes. And for your embroidery process, you'll have the option to import using a Wilcom TCH thread chart format. For this example, again, I'm going with transfer, and let's assume that I'm going to do this for vinyl, so we'll choose the CSV format. And upon selecting the format, it's going to the system here is going to display some basic information as far as how to format your CSV file in a way that the system is going to pick up the color values. Right, so again, CSV stands for comma separated values, and so what we're displaying here is the sequence that you'll need to follow. So you should have a file that has this information: cyan, magenta, yellow, black, red, green, and blue, and then the color name. And similar to the example that we did when we showed manually adding it through the UI, you only have to provide one of these sets, right? You're providing either CMYK or RGB. You don't have to provide both the CMYK and the RGB for one color, right? You only need one of those two different formats. So let me pull up my Excel application here, and we're just going to use Excel to kind of build out an example file that we can import. So let me drag that onto my screen, and I'll keep that information visible there so we can kind of reference it. All right, now this file here doesn't require a heading, so I don't need to type in cyan, magenta, yellow, black as my primary row. Instead, I can just start typing in the colors, right? So let's say I want to go ahead and import a cyan, right? I could put 100 into the cyan field, leave magenta, yellow, black empty, and leave red, green, blue empty. This column here is going to be my color name, so I'll call that cyan. And then I'll repeat the same for each of these basic colors. So I'll do 100% magenta, and we'll give that the name. We'll do 100% yellow. So you can see how this format starts coming together, right? You're specifying your color value and then the name. right. So we've got our black, and then we'll do our red. Red is going to be 255. Green, 255 as well. And then we'll do one last one for the blue at 255 as well. All right, and just for the heck of it, we'll do a white as well, and we'll do an RGB black. So we'll call this, we'll call that K actually. Or no, we'll do black CMYK. Oops. So we'll do a white down here. And that's going to be an RGB white, so 255 for everything. And then we're going to do an RGB black. And that's just going to be zeros all the way through. All right, now actually on second thought there, some of these actually might need to be empty rather than zeros. So if we're using any of the fields where we're using, let's say RGB instead of CMYK, we want to actually leave those empty. Similarly, if we're using CMYK, we want to leave the RGB fields empty. Right? So rather than zeroing them out, because zero is actually a value. So we want to leave them blank instead when they're not in use. All right, so this is the format here. So we've got kind of a top section of 4 CMYK colors where we've left the RGB fields blank. And then we have this section down here of 5 RGB colors where we've left the CMYK fields blank. So we can go ahead and take this, save it out onto my desktop here. And we'll want to make sure to select CSV as the format. And we'll call that basic colors. All right, so let's take a look. Coming back to the DecoNetwork interface now, I can go ahead and give it a palette name. And I can load my file. So I'll choose that CSV file I saved onto my desktop. And clicking save is going to start that import process for me. All right, so once it's done, it's going to kick me back to the color palettes list. I can see the palette imported here. We can go in and press edit to see the result. All right, and so it's going to display here. Now, a palette can only be in one format. So even though we imported some of those colors as CMYK and some as RGB, the system's only going to display it in one format all the way through. So it has done some conversion of those CMYK values to a corresponding RGB value. So that is something to keep in mind. You can't have a palette that's both CMYK and RGB. It's going to be one or the other. But you can still provide CMYK colors into the same sheet. The system's just going to convert that to a single format. All right, so that's the basic step on how to import a color palette using the CSV format. Just in case we've had some newer people jump onto the stream, again, feel free to type in the questions into the live chat. We are monitoring that live chat to take in your questions and answer them here on the session. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump into kind of a next tip here that we can cover. And this is going to relate to decoration method availability for certain products, right? So um, DecoNetwork tries to automatically handle a lot of the decoration process availability for you when you're using our catalog products. So when we get product information from our vendors, we do have an in-house team that goes in and assigns things like the material type, stretchability, the finish on the product, whether it's smooth or rough. Um, and so those attributes are used to make determination as far as which decoration processes are going to be available by default. So that's one of the basic uh, fundamentals of how the decoration processes will be selected. But in addition to that, there's also some places where you as the user can control that both kind of at a group level. Let's say all of apparel should have these processes allowed. Or you can also set it by the print location. So you could say on the left chests areas, I only want to allow embroidery, which is the default for the system. In some cases, we have users who also want to allow screen printing on that area, right? So let's go ahead and cover what are the different ways that we can enable or disable decoration processes across many different products. All right, so let's go in and take a look. Um, I guess to start, I'll jump in and take a look at a product here and kind of show, the end result. So if we take a look at this lady's shirt and we jump into the views and decoration areas tab, we're going to see this product here is using Smart Select rules, which are those uh, attributes that I mentioned earlier that the system looks at to determine which processes are going to be available. So when you see this little blue check mark, that means the system by default thinks that these processes are suitable for this product. You see the same followed down here under the specific print locations, the decoration areas. The ones that have a certain process enabled will have that check mark. So by default, my body area has transfer, DTG, and screen printing, but not embroidery. And likewise, the left and right chest areas have embroidery only and no transfer, DTG, or screen print. All right, so let's look at maybe applying some changes to that. The first place, or I guess the kind of the broadest place where you could go in to make an adjustment is under the Smart Select rules. So if you go into decoration processes, you would first choose a process that you want to look at. Then you would choose your Smart Select rules. All right, and here from the Smart Select rules, you'll see a list of all of the different attributes that the system's going to kind of look at and compare. So we can look at things like the color type, the material, again, whether it's 100% cotton or 100% polyester, the weave tightness, so either tight or very loose, the finish, smooth, or let's say rough, stretchability, right? Some decoration methods aren't really suitable for very stretchable products. And then down here at the bottom, you've got whether or not an item has buttons or has pockets. And then there's the last one here for pattern, right? So we've got a few different patterns here listed that you could either enable or disable. All right, so what you want to do on a screen like this is you want to check off the attributes that you want this product available on. So let's say I want this decoration method available on up to 50/50 cotton poly blend. I can click those options that weren't selected, and once I save this, the system's going to go back, find those products that are made up of these three different blends, and now it's going to enable DTG for them. Right? So check means this process will be available on a product that matches that attribute. All right, one that kind of trips people up sometimes is the has buttons or has pockets. Um, again, you're checking the one where you want it enabled. So right now I've got it checked no, which means DTG is going to be available on products that do not have buttons and do not have pockets. If I want it enabled on processes that have buttons, I would check off yes. And if I want it enabled on products that have pockets, I would check the yes there as well. Right, so for now, I'm just going to leave my rules exactly the same, and I'm not going to make a change there, but we've kind of reviewed that first level of where you go in to make adjustment. All right, the next section you might look at is your product defaults. Right, that's under the products section here in admin. Then from the submenu, you'll choose product defaults. I like to think of these more as groups rather than product defaults. Really, they're kind of a container of many different products into a specific group. They're not quite categories, right? Categories are an organizational construct where you can organize products into different categories. One product can be in many different categories, but product defaults or product groups are different, right? A product can only be in one product default or one product group. It can't be in many. And whatever group it's assigned to is going to have control over certain configuration options for that product. So let's take a look at my apparel group here. I'll press edit next to that. And on the left-hand side tabs, one of the options here is decoration pricing, which is what we're interested in looking at today. So by configuring a product group or product default, you have the ability to either use the system decoration pricing or switch to custom decoration pricing, which is going to open up two possibilities. The first possibility is to set certain processes as active or inactive, right? So I could say for all of apparel, I want to disable vinyl heat press, right? Maybe vinyl heat press I only do on signs or something. Um, so I can disable that entire process for all of my apparel. And then I might have a separate product group called signs where I only enable vinyl and I disable everything else, right? So again, it's kind of this is an option to broadly go in and make a change for process availability to a large set of products that are assigned to a specific product default or product group. All right, so this is the second section I would point out. And then the last section we're going to jump into is decoration areas. So this one's also here under the product section. And this is where you're going to control the defaults for your print location. So what we're going to display here is a list of categories for print locations. You've got things like adult tops, youth tops, infants, pants, so on and so forth. And what you can do is edit one of these categories. And we're going to show you the list of all of the different available print locations. Some of these are actually disabled by default. So if there are some additional ones that you want to enable, this is also where you come in to make that change. So you can enable any of these additional areas that you may want to offer. But the key that what we're looking at today, again, is process availability. So once you have those print locations enabled, whichever ones you want to offer, on the right-hand side of each print location, you'll have the option to select which processes are available on it. So this is, regardless of which processes you have enabled uh, via Smart Select or which processes are enabled at the product group or the product default. This is kind of your last stop, right? The print location, other than overriding it at the product level, is the print location. So the print location has kind of the final say as far as what's going to be available on it. And so you can come in and enable some of these processes. That doesn't mean it's going to be enabled on the product. Again, maybe that product is filed under apparel and I have transfer disabled for apparel. So that may not necessarily apply, but all of these different configurations will kind of consider each other and they'll follow the best route as far as your configuration. All right, but let's assume here, I wanted to maybe enable all of these methods, so I could go in and make that change. And then you want to make sure and hit save down at the bottom to apply your change. All right, so that's how you do it in bulk. Now, just one last thing, we'll go back into that lady's shirt where we first jumped in to look at the end result. And we'll just cover the very last stage where you could make a change, and that's here at the product level. So if you wanted to set a change for just a single item, you go into that single item. You can always switch away from Smart Select rules. That allows you to go in and manually make your selection. And then for the print locations, you can go in and say allow custom print locations, and then use a custom location for each of those. And once again, that opens up the checkboxes for you to make a change. This is more on an individual level, all right? So it's a lot more work compared to those three other sections that we went over, which allow you to do it kind of in mass, right? To either all of your products or a large subset group of your products. Hopefully this helps out in, customizing what you want to offer as far as processes on all of your different decoratable items. All right, so I do see a question here on the live chat regarding artwork. Let's jump in. We did cover artwork on a previous session. If we go into stock designs and stock design collections, um, DecoNetwork does offer two clip art collections. I would say artwork isn't the primary focus of the solution. We do, for the most part, for artwork, we're partnering with artwork providers, right? DecoNetwork isn't an art house, so we're not continually generating new artwork, but we're always partnering with different art vendors to offer their collections within our system. Most recently, we partnered up with Great Notions to offer their embroidery collection of designs as well as their vector print collection. Right, so that's as far as additions to that, this is going to be the route that you'll see that. We'll be continuing to partner with existing artwork vendors to offer their collections through our system. And it's going to be up to that artwork provider as far as how they're going to take payment for that. Some of these artwork providers have it set up as a monthly subscription. So you're paying a monthly price to enable those collections. Other vendors go off of a royalty model, so they'll only start charging you based on use. So as you use the designs in their collection, you'll start getting charged for them. All right, so hopefully that answers the question on artwork. All right, we're not seeing any other questions in the chat. Guys, feel free to type those in if you have them. Meantime, I'll jump into a next possible tip here. We do get asked pretty frequently as far as Business Hub, how do I change the logo, the company logo that displays on my invoices that are going out to my customer? So let me show what we're talking about here, and then we'll jump in to show how to set that globally, and then if you're on a multi-store plan, how to set that for each of your stores. All right, so let me just pull up an example order here in my test system. We'll do view as customer. All right, and so right now my system is actually not set up to display a logo. So uh, normally the logo displays here on the top left corner of your invoice, right above your company information. That does have to be set in order to start displaying. So let's take a look at where you're going to make that change. You're going to go into your admin section. From the left-hand side admin menu, you'll choose settings. You'll then click email and order templates, and you'll select correspondence settings. All right, here's the option where you can go in and upload a logo. So you can choose an image from your computer to upload and start displaying on your invoices. So let me save that change. Let's try reloading that customer view. And sure enough, now I'm starting to display my logo on my invoice. Going back to that idea of multiple web stores, again, you might have, you know, certain web stores that are branded to a specific company. Maybe you're doing company stores, and so you don't want those invoices displaying your company logo. You want your affiliate's company logo. So we do give that option. Um, Let me just go back here. So if you look under the correspondence settings, right below where you upload your logo, there's this option here, allow stores to upload their own logo. This is enabled by default, so it's the default configuration to go ahead and allow stores to do that. If you go into your websites list, to do that, you'll need to first manage one of your affiliate stores. All right, you're going to look under the store configuration section, and that's where you're going to find the option for correspondence logo. So you'll enable use separate logo for printing, and once again, you'll have that option to upload their specific logo. All right, going along with this tip here of uploading a logo for invoices, um, I do want to quickly cover here um, store branding, right? So through your configuration for your affiliate stores, you have the option for them to either uh, completely maintain their own branding, or you can choose to have them display your information, you as the fulfillment center, processing their orders and things like that. Um, and what that configuration would do, let's say, I want all of my stores to, have their own branding, but list themselves as kind of under my fulfillment center. First, let's go over that option. So it's here under store options within your main websites section. And it's this section here under fulfillment center display options, show fulfillment contact details. The three options are stores must show, stores never show, or let the store decide. Right? So stores must show means on my invoices and quotes, down at the bottom of the quote, there's going to be a message that says this order is fulfilled by C Cruise Beta, whatever the store name is. Setting it to stores never show, that means the invoice will look just like this. It's going to be branded to that specific store. There's going to be no mention of it being fulfilled by someone else. And then let store decide allows the store to make that choice. So if I go ahead and change to let store decide, and I go back into my websites list here, under configuration, you'll find store options. And store options is where the store can make that selection. So do I, as an affiliate store, want to display my fulfillment center's contact details, yes or no? And so the store can make that change. All right, so some good information there as far as how to brand both your own invoices as well as your affiliate store's invoices, and how to show the relevant information that you would want to display as far as either only your information or a combination of your information as well as your affiliate store's information. All right, so while I have my Business Hub loaded up here, let me go over one of the other new features in that 8.06 update related to purchase orders. So if you're looking within your purchase order section, there's a new feature to see the history of a purchase order. We do get fairly frequent um, support requests asking, um, why is my purchase order showing certain quantities? I don't remember making that change. But oftentimes, the history trail shows that a change was made by somebody on that purchase order. So having an option to actually see that history trail gives you insight to, who's made that change, what change was made, and things like that. So it gives you transparency into your purchase ordering. This is a similar feature that we've had for a while now on the orders section. So orders have a similar history uh, view as well. If you click into the history section of either an order or a purchase order, you'll get that loop icon, and clicking that loop icon is going to give you the full details of the changes. So if you choose an order with many different changes, let me see if I have one here. I don't, but so you'll see, every time that the order or the purchase order is saved, that's creating a new uh, history item. So you'll have the full history of every single save action on that order or purchase order. All right, I think we have time for just about maybe one more tip here. I'm not seeing any questions, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to jump into the page editor for this one. Um, we have had a few different questions kind of along these lines, so let me jump in and kind of walk through it. Um, so we do from time to time again get the question. All right, sorry about that, guys. A bit of a hiccup there with the computer, but we're back. I do want to just cover that last tip. Again, I'm not sure where I got cut off, but what I'm trying to cover here is how does DecoNetwork handle blogs? So specifically, again, we don't have a built-in blog function, but the way we would recommend handling it is, there's a lot of platforms out there that, their sole focus is, blogging, right? The blogging platform. So you have things like WordPress, where they're hosting your website blog. And so we would recommend, looking at one of those solutions. And then you'll kind of want to incorporate uh, that blog specific website into your DecoNetwork website. So there's a couple ways you could do that. There's really one kind of preferred way. So if we take a look at that here in your page editor under the pages section, let's go ahead and add a new page, and we'll call that blog. Right, so what you could always do is go into advanced settings and set the page status to link to external site, and give the link to your blog wherever it's hosted. Um, the downside to just doing a link to an external site is that that content that you have on that blog isn't considered content that's part of your DecoNetwork website. So, usually people are doing blogs because there is some potential content benefit in terms of SEO, and if you're doing a straight link, you're not really getting that benefit. So the way we would recommend linking your blog to your DecoNetwork website is going in and choosing embed external website. All right, using this option, again, you're going to specify the URL of that site that you're looking to embed. And then you want to specify the path name that that site is going to have within your DecoNetwork system. So I might say, /blog. So let's start there. Let's save that change, and we'll go ahead and preview this page. Oops, typo. Let's see, I might have to publish that. All right, so what we're doing with this embed external website, we're using a technology called reverse proxy, which is taking the content of that external site and making it seem like it's content that's actually part of your site at this specific path. So anything that you're linking to is again part of your website structure. Now, what we're seeing here with this example, I just embedded an example site here, which is calling a lot of resources that are hosted on that external site that I don't have locally. So for that, we have these rewrite filters down here at the bottom. So what you would need to do, wherever um, you're hosting that external blog, you're going to write some rules down here at the bottom so that whenever something's calling for a specific resource, let's say, that external site calls /images, and /images is not going to be part of your DecoNetwork website. So you'll have to do a replace of /images to, maybe the full address. So in this example, something like this, right? That's where the images are actually hosted, right? So you'll do those rewrite rules so that whenever we go in and make those requests, the system will actually find those relevant files. All right, so for a simpler site like a blog site, you won't have to do as much of this. This is a pretty complex one that I picked there. Let me try actually a simpler one. Just so you get the idea of how that's going to work. We'll try the preview this time. Again, I might have to publish that. All right, looks like it's not previewing for me, but yeah, so just kind of the general idea here. Embed external website is going to be the recommended option for you to handle a blog within the DecoNetwork system. Again, that blog you're going to host somewhere else, right? There's a lot of great blog centric platforms out there. You'll host that blog somewhere else, and then you'll embed that using the embed external website option. Again, we're going to use reverse proxy to take that content, embed it onto a page that looks like it's hosted through your DecoNetwork system so that you do end up getting those benefits in terms of SEO with that site embedded. All right, we do also have some kind of written, more in-depth step-by-step walkthroughs on this feature. So we'll go ahead and list those down in the description of the recorded session for today. All right, we're just about out of time, so I want to thank everyone for joining in and asking questions. Just a quick reminder, we're doing these sessions every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, so definitely tune back in every Wednesday to follow up. Come in with your questions ready and type those into the live chat as we go. And I do want to give a quick highlight to any viewers that may not already be DecoNetwork subscribers. Again, we do have a great team of client services folk who will set up a tour to actually walk you through the system. They'll show you, a lot of the features on the website itself, as well as the order management backend. So if you are interested in DecoNetwork as a solution for your print or embroidery business, definitely book a tour with our team so you can start seeing what some of the benefits are of joining in with us. All right, again, thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.